ora everyone, I'm Yolanda and I'm really delighted to introduce Jacques Laventure. He is from Los Angeles in America and he has a passion for helping people become fit and healthy and live sustainably. And to give them the tools to do this, he has set up a platform called Fit Eat Well, and this platform has three main focuses: sustainability, zero food wastage, and family bonding. And Jacques will talk today about eating sustainably and his Get Fit Eat Well program. So Jacques, I'd like to welcome you onto the stage. Nau mai, haere mai te Whangarei and to the Vegan Expo. Can we have a round of applause to welcome Jacques?
Thanks, New Zealand. This is an amazing experience to travel all this way to share this platform with you. And so I wanted to make sure before you leave this room that you get the opportunity to learn how to eat better, not only for your health, but for the health of the planet. And I'll be sharing these recipes that you can do that's more practical for your life. And so we have a lot of opportunities to eat better, right? And so before I start, I wanted to get an idea to see how many people here are not vegan. Oh, wow. Okay. That's a good amount. So this is helpful because I was assuming there was a good vegan community here. So great. So I wanted to share my story about how I started as a chef and then really transitioning. And so I'm originally from New York. And I grew up from a Caribbean home where a lot of the culture was, it was a French colonized country, and it was cultures of a lot of meats and dairy, if you know French cooking. And so I grew up with that culture, and not only that, I also grew up in the U.S. where it's a lot of fast food. And growing up with this culture really helped shape my upbringing. And so a lot of our food choices are based off of, how we have the choices, right? And so growing up in Brooklyn, I had a lot of opportunities to really, I had more choices. And so when I had the opportunity whether to eat healthy or fast foods, it really was a difficult decision because of a lot of the stuff that I seen in the magazines were marketed for bodybuilders, and it was heavy meats and dairies. So I chose the path. I started in the fitness industry early on, really consuming a lot of meats and dairies, primarily because I made the association of, strength equals meat and protein. And so a lot of us make that connection, right? We associate that eating meats is where you get most of your protein. The previous talk, Dr. Mentioned that most people ask the question, where do I get my protein? And so this is one of the most common question that you hear in the community. Where do you get your protein, right? And so like I said, I started in the industry eating a lot of meat, and so I became the definition of meathead, right? This was the direction, this was the pathway that I knew, and that was because it was shaped by my own cultural experiences. But I picked up a lot of traction in New York. I built a fitness business around helping people with their transformation. And when I helped them build the transformation, I started picking up a lot of traction that led me to go to Los Angeles. And so if you can see there now where I was teaching not only healthy food, but I was making the connection of fitness and food. So that's where my journey started. And before I even continue, I really wanted to make sure that it was more of an interactive talk. And so if I can gauge the audience and really get questions in between, so I can kind of really shape and tailor this message for you. Okay, so if I can get any questions about fitness and food to really help shape the direction that I'm going with this talk. Okay, great. That's a good question. And so, growing up in New York, like I said, and really helping people with the plant-based diet, when I moved to California, that's when I was in the environment that really helped shape my decision. Vegan, growing up in New York, it was, a lot of options, but growing in working in California, the environment changed where, I was around plant-based, I was around people that were in meditation. I was in the environment where it really allowed me to be more connected to food. And so that made the switch where I started doing more soul searching and realized that, I didn't feel better. And that was one of the biggest things when I went to Los Angeles. They were talking about feeling all this thing. And I couldn't make that connection until literally when I was curious to go plant-based. I started with the Daniel's diet, a plant-based diet that was found in the Bible. And it was 10 days at the time. So I said, okay, all right, I'm curious to see what these vegans are talking about of this feeling. And so 2 weeks went on, and I understood that feeling that they were talking about. I got the mental clarity, and I felt lighter. And then that's when I was hooked. And from that day on, this is where it started, where I just changed my practice. I incorporated plant-based in the meal plans that are prescribed to my clients. And so that was the switch. I just was in the right environment that allowed my curiosity to get that feeling and that experience for myself. And that's really the message that I really want to connect, is that really the switch happens when you get to feel it out for yourself. And food is one of the things that you can actually do every single day. Like, you have that choice every single day to help remind you to exercise that choice of what you're going to put in your bodies. And that's the connection that I'm hoping that drives in, is that you can exercise your choice. And that's what made the switch. Thank you. And so as things progressed, when I transitioned to LA, I got called to come back to New York to focus more in the ecological aspect, primarily because New York City was big on climate change. And they asked me to really spearhead climate change, primarily because when you do eat less meat, there is less of a less harm that you do to the environment. And so Meatless Mondays was one of the programs that I started in LA that really picked up momentum in New York City, where that was the shift in adding not only the health element and also caring for the environment. That was where the connection happened. And so the pressing issue now today is climate change. And so I have pivoted a few times, over the years, of making that connection between fitness and food, and now incorporating climate being an issue. And so the biggest issue now is, there's a lot of culprits, but the biggest issue is the farming industry of the dairy and the agriculture industry. And so if you see in the chart, you see that the diabetes has increased since this industry has increased, because the demand has increased. And we know that the food and our water is contaminated, primarily because of pesticides and methane. And the methane is really what's causing the issue right now with the cows and the manure. And that's the biggest issue. And I know that here in New Zealand, the dairy industry is one of the biggest economies here, right? And so I think one of the biggest things that I want to really shed light in the climate issue is that it's really about the agriculture that's happening with the cows, pretty much. And so if you can eat less meat, then that would bring the demand down, and that would create the shift. And so if you could do one meatless Monday to start off with, that's one way that you could do and actually take action into the biggest issue right now, which is with climate change, because that's one of the pressing issues now that we have. And right. So what I'm doing now currently with children is making that connection with linking the carbon footprint with foods, and this gives you the clear picture about what the carbon footprint in foods. It shows you that where meat compared to tofu, and then you can see at the bottom where the most wholesome foods makes the least impact, and that's the biggest thing there is whole foods and not the highly processed foods, because even the vegans or people that are eating plant-based foods, the corporate industry has really have taken over where it's marketing highly processed foods. So just because the word is vegan on the package doesn't mean that it's healthy. Really, the main focus is wholesome foods or whole foods. That's the biggest thing. So if you're curious about going plant-based, you really want to focus on whole foods. That's the biggest thing from anything that you want to learn today. And so it could be confusing a lot of times to really make a decision or to exercise your choice. And a lot of people are thinking, okay, well, climate change, is it really going to make our lives much different? Okay, it's a 1 degree Fahrenheit difference. The water is going to get a little bit warmer, and no, it's actually a little bit more serious than that, because it's the pollution in the water, and the water source is what's going to affect us long term. And so if we really focus on our plates as a solution, then there's really no curiosity, or there's not going to be any confusion at all. And so the solution is to reduce food waste. Reducing food waste will help mitigate the climate issue. It will mitigate just spending without a plan. And so if you're going to reduce food waste, you can start off with first having a plan, because having a plan is one of the best things that you could do for yourself. And that's what I'll share with you with the meal plans. So if we go back to the plate, and we look at the plate being protein being 25%, versus in America with the the standard American diet is really something to focus and to compare. That you see in this plate, it's only 25%. In our culture today, we consume a lot of protein, primarily because we were trained that we need a lot of meats, and that's not the case. There's a lot of science and research that shows that you need less protein. And the talk before, the physician mentioned that you only need about 50 grams. And when I started in the fitness industry years ago, you would see that they would market 100 to 150, sometimes to match your body weight. And so back then, I was consuming a lot more protein than needed. And you can look now where I'm increasing my activities from lifting weights, swimming, playing basketball, and I'm consuming less protein and finding myself recovering faster with just plant-based diet and not over-consuming. Because imagine that you're consuming 3,000, 4,000 calories a day, really obsessed with a lot of consumption of food. That can really just, I don't know about you, but that really could take a toll on you. And if you're saying we don't have enough time, consuming that many calories is really not the way to go. And so this plate helps to kind of help you just design your plate around the macros. Anyone know about macronutrients? Oh, okay. So most people know about macronutrients. So protein, fats, and carbs. So protein, and then you know grains is one of the things that we can also supplement, and we can go into that a little bit further. But before we continue, grains. Have you guys consumed quinoa? Okay, quinoa. So okay, you're pretty much healthy. So I wanted to mention quinoa because that's one of the grains that I always recommend. And so we're going to go back to the ratios of protein, fats, and carbs, and comparing the ratios. And so I always link it up to actually your workouts being a big focus. And so if you look at the charts, when you're looking to gain muscles, you're going to increase more of your grains and decrease the vegetables because it's high in fiber for muscle gain. And then you're going to increase more fiber intake for more weight loss. So Get Fit, Eat Well Challenge is what I created from throughout the years of helping with the transformations. And so the Get Fit, Eat Well Challenge is what I created in New York City, working with Ascension Church, where they were my first pilot to really try this program that incorporated just plant-based. And the first 2 days were just detox, going raw. So I incorporated a little bit from the Daniels diet, where it was just raw to detox, to really increase your body's real metabolism. And so if you're transitioning to plant-based or being curious, one of the things that was effective in New York City, Veronica comes to mind, where she was hesitant at first. Veronica's about 70 years old, and she's Venezuelan, and so she was really connected to, the culture of eating meats. And one of the things she said, that she could never see herself giving up meat. And so I had to really convince her to try this challenge. And it was a 40-day challenge to not eat meat. And so I just said, if you can give me 2 days to try this challenge and detox, then that's all I need for you to see the results. And so 2 days went by, and Veronica was ecstatic that she really not only felt the difference, but she noticed the difference, that in 2 days, just because she went from her current diet and just detoxing, which was just really mainly raw. It was just sunflower seeds. It was kale. It was shredded sweet potatoes and beets. It was a completely raw diet. Within the 2 days, she's seen the results, and that's where the 40-day challenge was created, where you can actually get the results in the first 2 days, and then with the rest of the plan, you actually can see significant gains. And so mise en place. So I start here with mise en place. Mise en place is a French term that means put everything in place. Familiar with mise en place? Okay. Okay, that's great. So something you're not familiar. Woo, thanks. Okay, so but you're working with me. But mise en place is a French term that I've learned in culinary school, and it was actually probably the only thing that I feel that was beneficial through culinary school. And mise en place was important primarily because think about when you put all your ingredients in place. So you put all your ingredients in place before you start cooking. So it really mitigates the stress of the process of shifting for a knife or shifting for ingredients. So you're creating the environment when you put everything in place with mise en place. And so with mise en place is triggering this behavior that I'm going to cook healthy. And so if your mise en place looks colorful, then it's triggering a behavior of eating healthy. And so mise en place is actually one of the things that you can incorporate every single day. Before you start cooking, you can actually put all your ingredients in front of you, and you'll blaze through your cooking experience. So mise en place, right? Mise en place. So mise en place is M-I-S-E en place. So E-N place, P-L-A-C-E. Mise en place. So I promise you, it's one of the most important things when it comes to cooking is mise en place. So I saved you culinary school. Literally, it was, no, honestly, seriously, 30,000 deal, that's gone. But really, that's one of the most effective things that you could do. And I'm hoping that you can do mise en place in your cooking. So I'm going to do a cooking demonstration in probably 2 hours. And so I wanted to kind of show you the visuals of not only just mise en place, but of food and the whole experience, because that's the fastest way that you can actually make a difference in the pressing issue, not only for yourself, for your health, but really the health of the planet. And so if going through the process of food, it's really about taking consideration of your nutrition. And so when you clean the vegetables, you really you really have to do it in a situation where you're not really rinsing off the B12 of the dirt, because in the last conversation, the last talk, they were talking about B12. So you can actually get B12 from foods, but you wash it away from foods when you really rinse it out. And so you can do a mini rinse. In fact, I only rinse it for mass market, but I tend to have foods that are just raw, straight from the farmer's market. And that's important when we look at that food. And so also at the bottom you see that food photography. I recently incorporated food photography into the challenge, primarily because there was a research study that showed that when people take photos of their food, they're more invested, and you can see them, they're more creative in the aspect, and they enjoy the cooking process. And so food photo tips you could do is, you don't want to use flash. So it's not like a person where you think flash is great. No, you don't want to use any flash. You actually want to use natural light. And also when you are taking photos of food, you want to do it from above versus head on. And then if you're going to do it eye level, you want to do it eye level like you're going to consume the food. Lastly is taste, because we actually we make our decisions based off taste. Most people don't know how to make healthy food taste good, right? That they associate healthy food with it being bland, not having any flavor, and that's a misconception. And today you'll learn that with salt, fat, and sugar, those are the things that actually make foods taste good. And so there's this thing that if you make healthy food, that you don't incorporate fats and sugars and salt. And I'm telling you today is that you can add Himalayan salt, you can add good fats, a good substitute for the creamy fats. You can actually add cauliflower as a substitute for creams. Anyone use cauliflower for creams? Okay, great. So yeah, that's a great substitute for fats. And avocados. Avocados is a great way to incorporate fats. And I'm hoping that you guys can incorporate the fats in your program. And so the last picture is just my current project that I'm working in Palo Alto, where I'm helping local kids farm and source local products, where they understand not only the health aspects of food, but really the ecological aspects of foods. So really sustainability is about really keeping intact our current resources and to mitigate any excess wastage. And that's not only for ourselves, but it's really for the future generation. I don't know anyone that has kids, but if you actually think about the future generation in showing them that you actually can make a difference through food, and like by not only eating healthy and exercising your choice, you can actually make a difference in this world, just because it's one meal at a time that you can make a difference. And so protecting the planet, right, is really up to us. And so I'm hoping that today you can actually learn a few different things from not only the challenge, but just in general. So I think, thank you for listening. Yeah. So I'll take this time to answer any questions. Yes. Thank you for your patience as well, too. That's a good question. And so when I think it was about maybe a month into it where I noticed that I was more shredded. That's a given that you'll actually shred, burn more calories from there. And then in month 2, I realized that I was never big on pre-workouts or supplements, but in month 2, I realized that I was buzzing, that I had this different sense of energy. I don't recommend skipping breakfast, but there were times where I would work out and have this new energy I didn't know where it exists, because when I used to eat meat, it was 3 hours would go by and I would have these hungry pains, or I would get, hangry, and it was just, it was different when in month 2 where I noticed that I had this sustainable energy. And then I would say month 4 is when I started to, at that time, it was all about size for me because, I was traveling and everything was about image, so I had to look a certain way. So month 4, I realized, wow, I actually can maintain my size. And then month 6, I was like back again to my strength. Like I was doing the same in terms of lifting. Because, back then when you're younger, you're actually just, or men are trying to compete with yourself about how much weights you can lift. And so I was doing the same things when I was competing competitively month 6 into it. And I know, of course, muscle memory, but it was a different experience. Like I felt that before I didn't take supplements, but my recovery was great. Yeah, that was a good question. Thanks. Well, with plant-based, it's definitely 80-20 rule. With plant-based, because when I had changed my trajectory, or when I was incorporating plants into not only my practice and in my recommending to my clients, I noticed that it was significant difference. Because before I would, relatively offer healthier options. It was always healthy, but when I incorporated that 2-day detox, where I just said, okay, I always say, just give me 40 days, but if you can commit just 2 days with just going completely raw, that's when they were shredding, and people were seeing that the difference. And so, before you leave, I can share with you the challenge. And that 2-day experience is the only thing that I stress and want anyone to commit, is that detox phase, where it's like almost like putting reset on your taste buds, and it just helps just kickstart your body to just shred. Sure. That's the reason for the technology and me relocating to the Bay Area, is that every time that I would shift from different cities, because I also lived in Chicago, I opened up a wellness clinic in Dallas for 2 years. So I was always just shifting and growing, because I always wanted to experience something newer, like opening a gym in a wellness center, opening a restaurant, traveling different cities. And so what would happen, I would still send out digital recipes, and I would send out meal plans, and at that time I wasn't really using Skype, but then when Skype was really popular and there wasn't that much lag time, so I was using Skype, but it wasn't the same, because in New York City, when I didn't really share with my clients that I was leaving. I had to put a Facebook post like, I'm in LA, and it's like, no. So it was really challenging shifting from different cities. But now I'm excited, because going to the Bay Area, I was able to develop a platform where I'm enjoying the transformation, and I'm in throughout the whole entire process. And if it's not me, it's my team that's supporting. And so yeah, it was challenging, but now I'm excited, because I get to stay more connected to see the transformation. That's what excites me the most, is really using that 80-20, using that food to stimulate that, the body to work for you than against you. And that's what I think the biggest thing is with plant-based. If you're not going to do it for the ecological aspects, but for a vanity or for your body, it really makes a difference substantially. Sure. Okay, yeah, so 10 years ago, it was a little bit different. It wasn't as a mainstream or acceptable 10 years ago, telling everyone, especially French Caribbean, saying that you're going to go vegan. Like, vegan, what? You're not going? Like, my mom, well, she doesn't do it now, but every day when I would come, she was like, you sure you don't want to have one little bite of meat? And so it was really challenging to do it, but I stayed consistent because I wasn't doing it anymore for about the magazines, you know, growing up watching the magazines. It was just really about that feeling that I had when I went to LA, that feeling. Everyone was like, that feeling, the vibes, that feeling. And so that was what was my why and my motivation. It was like, man, I love how I feel. I mean, and I would love for my families and friends to experience that feeling. And I would say they will come around. And it wasn't until a few months ago where my mom is now officially plant-based for like literally a few months ago. She visited, I said, you know what? I'm just going to spend the time just cooking different recipes that we used to cook, all plant-based. I introduced the quinoa to her. She was like, before she left, she was like, can you buy me bags of quinoa? So that's why it was like, it was just me staying consistent. But that was one of the biggest breakthrough for me, to have my mom just really fully incorporate plant-based, because she's now 73. And so for her to now like want to incorporate that is just a blessing for me, so I can have more years with her. So yeah. So that's a good question. Actually, that's a great question. Primarily, I didn't get blood tests like early on when I was doing it. I was just head on. But I did get blood tests years ago when I started swimming and playing basketball more, because I moved to California, so everyone was swimming more. I was like, man, in New York City, I didn't know how to swim, so I just taught myself. But I noticed that I was getting elbow pain, and so that's when I decided to get a blood test. And they were talking about I wasn't getting enough calcium in my diet, and that's where I had to go back to basics and work on myself to do a plan. And I was like, well, I'm not incorporating a plan for myself. I'm issuing out plans, but I wasn't following a plan because I thought, oh, I eat healthy. And so that's another, I'm glad you asked that question, because that's another perk to this challenge, is that you actually can track nutrients, and you can see which foods can give you more of those nutrients. So for me, for instance, with my elbow pain, I incorporated more kale. I had more sesame seeds. I did not want to take any drugs, glucosamine, all this other stuff that you see over the counter, and I was just adamant that food is thy medicine. You always hear that, and literally 2 months into incorporating kale and sesame seed, those are the two big ones for me. I didn't have any elbow pain. I was able to lift, swim, and play basketball. So high stress on my body. And it feels great, because when I was at that point when I lost it, it was like, oh man. But now that I know that food, so now I'm just tracking everything and making sure that I incorporate all of my nutrients, and I put that in the recipes. Mm-hmm. So I have about 4 more days, and go back to Northern California. So I haven't really made my schedule out yet. So I just said, since I'm in Whangarei, it took me a long time to pronounce this, the Whangarei, but now I can say Whangarei. Or am I saying it right? Okay, Whangarei. Yeah. So yeah, I may stay around and experiment and explore and be in nature. I don't do that enough. Not since leaving LA. But yeah, here for a few days. And I have a cooking demonstration in a few hours, really doing a jerk cauliflower chicken. So it's all Jamaican jerk. And so if you know Jamaican jerk, it's a little bit on the spicier side, and using cauliflower. So yeah, I'm a big cauliflower fan.
Okay, so Jacques, I just wanted to say thank you so much on behalf of all of us that you've come all the way to Aotearoa, tēnā koe, for doing that. Really appreciate the great talk, and I loved what you said about the mise en place, about laying your food out and looking at it before you. I'm going to do that. And also, I loved what you gave us in terms of the tips about taking food photos, because mine are rubbish. Oh. I think they're going to be a lot better. So thank you for that. So we have a little gift for you from the organisers of the Whangarei Vegan Expo. So can everyone give Jacques a round of applause?
Thank you.
And Jacques will be at 1:30. He'll be doing his cookery demonstration. So I suggest you all come back because I will be to get some of that. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.